Somewhere in a farmhouse closet right now, a rifle worth six figures is leaning against a wall next to a rake and a broken fishing rod. Nobody in that house has any idea what they're looking at, and by the time they find out, it might already be gone. These are the 10 hunting rifles that American families are quietly sitting on without realizing it. Guns built during an era of craftsmanship this country will never see again. And the number one rifle on this list has crossed $500,000 at auction. Not 10 years from now. Already. Let's get into it. At number 10, the Mannlicher Schoenauer. The rotary magazine rifle that turned American big game hunters into believers a century ago and that most modern gun owners have never even heard of. Steyr in Austria introduced this rifle back in 1903, and the feature that made it legendary was hidden inside the stock itself, a spool-shaped rotary magazine that fed cartridges into the chamber with a smoothness no tubular magazine lever gun could touch. Add in the double-set trigger, which let a hunter tap the rear trigger and reduce the pull on the front one to almost nothing, and you had a rifle built for the kind of precision shot that only comes once in a hunt. Ernest Hemingway owned one. Kermit Roosevelt owned one. Wealthy sportsmen from Vienna to Bombay ordered them because nothing else on the market felt like it in the hand. Production ran for decades, but the rifles built before the Second World War are where the real money sits today. Back in 2000, you could find a Schoenauer carbine for around $600 if you knew where to look. Today, a documented pre-war example in strong original condition is bringing $2,000 to $4,000, and the custom-grade rifles with engraving and traceable ownership have pushed past $15,000 at major auctions. Interwar production, the rifles built between the wars when Steyr was still hand-fitting every action, sits in that same range but tends to trade slightly under the pre-war examples once a specialist confirms the dating. What most owners never realize is that the Mannlicher name alone does not guarantee value. Condition, originality of the stock, and whether the bore still shows sharp rifling all swing the price by thousands in either direction. If you ever come across one, check the floor plate. The rotary magazine will be visible right there, and the barrel will carry a Steyr address stamp. That full-length stock running almost to the muzzle is the giveaway nobody can miss. If your grandfather brought one home from Europe, do not let it leave your family. Coming in at number 9, the Sako Finnbear, sometimes stamped L61R, the Finnish Magnum action that quietly outclassed almost everything built in America during its run. Sako operates out of Riihimäki, Finland, and when they built the L61R action, they built it specifically to handle the biggest Magnum cartridges a hunter could throw at it. The 375 Holland and Holland, the 300 Weatherby, the 338 Winchester Magnum. The barrels were cold hammer forged, a process that produces a level of consistency American factories of the era simply were not doing at scale, and the receiver was machined from solid bar stock with tolerances tighter than anything Winchester or Remington was putting out. Production ran from 1961 into the mid-1980s before Sako moved on to newer action designs, which means the supply of these rifles is now permanently fixed. 20 years ago, you could find one for $500. Today, a correct example with matching numbers and original walnut is bringing $2,200 to $4,500, and the custom shop rifles with figured wood and special order chamberings are reaching into 5 figures. American hunters who traveled overseas in the 60s and 70s routinely brought these back after African and European safaris, which means a surprising number are still sitting in family collections, with nobody realizing the rifle came from one of the finest actions ever machined. Documented safari examples, the ones with paperwork tying them to a specific hunt or professional guide, carry a real premium over an unmarked rifle in identical mechanical condition. Look for the Sako stamp on the receiver and the Riihimäki address on the barrel, and notice the scope rail machined directly into the action itself, a detail that told hunters this rifle was built to be shot precisely, not just carried. Taking number 8 on our list, the Ruger No. 1 Tropical. The single-shot rifle Bill Ruger considered his own personal favorite out of everything his company ever built. Introduced in 1966, the #1 borrowed its falling block action from the old Farquharson rifles of the Victorian era, and the tropical variant was chambered for the cartridges that stopped dangerous game. The .458 Winchester Magnum, the .375 H&H, later the .416 Rigby. One round in the chamber, one shot, then you reload. That discipline is exactly what made professional hunters trusted in Africa and Alaska both. The early rifles, the ones built before the mid-1970s, carry a level of fit and polish that later economy versions never matched. 2 decades ago, these were $600 rifles gathering dust in gun shop racks. Today, a correct early tropical in excellent condition is bringing $1,800 to $3,800. And the rare chamberings that Ruger discontinued decades ago are crossing $8,000. Part of what drives this market is simplicity itself. A single-shot rifle has almost nothing that can go wrong mechanically after 50 years. No magazine spring to weaken, no feed ramp to wear, which means honest original examples show up in remarkably good working order even after decades of hard use in the field. Collectors specifically hunt for the earliest serial number ranges because that's where Ruger's original hand-fitting was still being done before the company scaled up production to meet growing demand. Check the barrel for the Southport, Connecticut roll mark, and watch how the lever drops the breech block when it's worked. That falling block action is unmistakable once you've seen it. At number 7, the Savage Model 99. The American lever action that solved a problem nobody else in the country had figured out how to solve. Every other lever gun of its era used a tubular magazine, which meant cartridges had to sit nose to primer, which meant you could only safely load round nose or flat point bullets. Savage introduced a rotary spool magazine hidden inside the receiver in 1899, and suddenly a lever action could fire pointed Spitzer bullets, the same aerodynamic ammunition bolt actions we're using. That single innovation let the 99 chamber real high velocity hunting cartridges, the 300 Savage and later the 308 Winchester, cartridges no other lever gun of the era could touch. Production ran all the way to 1998, but it's the pre-1968 rifles collectors are chasing, built with hand-fitted American walnut and machined from solid steel forgings, before Savage modernized the line and lost what made it special. Back in 2000, you could buy one for $300. Today, a correct pre-1968 example with matching numbers is worth $900 to $1,800. Deluxe engraved variants are reaching $4,500, and the rare takedown models and scarce pre-war calibers have crossed $8,000 at auction. What separates the 99 from other lever guns of the collector world is how many were actually used as working rifles for generations, which means most surviving examples show honest wear rather than sitting untouched in a closet. And that honest patina is exactly what today's buyers are hunting for. A rifle with a family history, a specific deer camp, a specific hunter, adds real value on top of the base collector price whenever that story can be documented. Look through the loading port for the rotary magazine and check the left side of the receiver for the round counter, a small brass window that tells you exactly how many shells are left. If your father hunted deer camp with one of these in the 60s, it's worth far more sitting in your safe than it ever was on the rack. Number 6, the Browning BAR, but specifically the Belgian-made examples built before 1976. The semi-automatic hunting rifle John Browning's company designed for hunters who wanted a fast second shot without sacrificing accuracy. Introduced in 1967, the first 9 years of the BAR production happened entirely at the Fabrique Nationale Herstal plant in Belgium, and those rifles are a different animal from what came after. European walnut, hand-fitted gas systems, polished blued finish, and on the higher grades, hand engraving that rivaled custom gun makers. In 1976, Browning shifted production to Japan, and while those rifles still shoot fine, collectors draw a hard line between the two. The Belgian rifles came in 5 grades, from a standard checkered walnut grade 1 up, through fully custom presentation pieces at grade 5 with gold inlay and master grade wood. 2 decades ago, a Belgian grade 1 BAR was a $400 rifle. Today, a correct example with matching numbers is bringing $1,200 to $2,200. Grade 2s are reaching $4,500. Grade 3s are hitting 12,000, and the rare grade 4s and 5s have crossed 18,000 at auction. The higher grades in particular were often ordered as gifts, retirement presents, wedding gifts, hunting club trophies, which means many of them saw almost no field use at all, and a Belgian BAR that has spent 50 years in a case rather than a truck rack commands a serious premium over one that clearly went hunting every fall. Check the receiver for the Fabrique Nationale Herstal Belgique roll mark and look at the wood grain, tighter and denser than the later Japanese stocks. If you've got a Belgian BAR in your safe right now, drop the grade and caliber in the comments, because I want to know how many of you are sitting on this without knowing it. We're halfway through this list, and every rifle so far has a story most gun owners have never heard. Here's my question for you before we keep going. Which of these first 5 rifles is already sitting in your safe? Type the number in the comments right now. And stay with me, because the next 5 rifles are where the values stop being interesting and start being life-changing. Coming in at 5, the Remington Model 700, but only the early production run built between 1962 and 1970, not the millions of rifles that followed. Remington introduced the 700 in 1962, and it eventually became the foundation for the Marine Corps M40 sniper rifle and the Army's M24, the most produced bolt-action hunting rifle in American history with over 5 million built. But the first 8 years of production are mechanically different from everything after. The original Wayne Leake trigger design, a deeper polished blue finish before Remington started cutting costs, hand-cut basket weave checkering on real American walnut, and a bolt that cycles noticeably smoother than later guns off the same line. 20 years ago, these were $350 rifles nobody was chasing. Today, a correct 1962 to 1970 example with matching numbers is bringing $900 to $1,800. And custom shop special order rifles with factory letter documentation are reaching $3,000 to $7,000 at auction. The tragedy with this rifle in particular is how many early examples were sporterized over the decades, drilled for scopes with cheap mounts, refinished with modern stocks, because for most of their life, nobody thought a Remington 700 was worth treating carefully. That means truly untouched early guns are rarer than the production numbers suggest, and any example that still has its factory finish and original checkering intact is worth verifying before anyone lets it go for scrap value. Check the serial number. Anything below roughly 270,000 puts you in the early production window. Look at the bolt face for the 3 rings of steel design and compare the checkering to a modern 700. The difference is immediate once you know what to look for. Occupying number 4 on our countdown, the Weatherby Mark V, specifically the early rifles built in Germany by J.P. Sauer between 1958 and 1972, before production ever touched Japan. Roy Weatherby built his company on speed, developing his own family of Magnum cartridges, including the 300 Weatherby Magnum and the massive 460 Weatherby Magnum, and he needed an action that could handle those pressures without flinching. The Mark V action he designed with Sauer used 9 locking lugs arranged in 3 rows, making it the strongest commercially produced bolt action ever built. The German-made rifles carry European walnut with the signature Weatherby diamond inlay on the fore and grip, hand-fitted actions, and a polish that the later Japanese production never fully matched. In 2000, a German Mark V was a $600 rifle. Today, a correct example with matching numbers is bringing $1,800 to $4,500. Custom shop rifles with figured walnut and engraving are reaching $6,000 to $14,000, and documented pieces from Roy Weatherby's own personal collection have crossed $22,000 at auction. What most sellers miss is that Weatherby cartridges themselves were proprietary, which meant the rifle and the ammunition were sold as a package for decades. In a German Mark V that still comes with its original factory ammunition, or an early Weatherby reloading manual, carries extra weight with serious collectors chasing a complete period piece. The 9-lug action alone is instantly recognizable to anyone who has handled one, a mechanical signature no other manufacturer of the era attempted to copy at that price point. Check the barrel for the Sohn, Eckernförde, Germany stamp alongside the Weatherby markings, and look closely at the diamond inlays, a detail unique to this production run. At number 3, the Winchester Model 70 African grade, chambered in .458 Winchester Magnum, and this one is the rarest pre-1964 Model 70 Winchester ever built. Winchester developed the .458 Winchester Magnum cartridge in 1956 specifically for African dangerous game, and they built this rifle alongside it. A Monte Carlo stock in extra heavy walnut, a hooded ramp front sight, an African Express rear sight designed specifically for this cartridge, a super grade polish, and a heavy-duty recoil pad because this rifle was built to stop something that could kill you. Every single one was a special order. Winchester never stocked them on shelves. Total production across the entire run from 1956 to 1963 was roughly 1,226 rifles. In 1990, you could find one for $1,500. By 2010, that number had climbed to 4,000. Today, a correct matching numbers example in excellent condition with the original African Express sights is bringing $4,500 to $12,000, and documented rifles carried by actual professional hunters in Africa have crossed $18,000 at auction. Because every single African grade was custom ordered, rather than sitting on a dealer shelf, tracking down the original order paperwork through Winchester's surviving records can sometimes confirm the exact hunter or professional guide who requested it. And that kind of documented history can add tens of thousands of dollars on top of the base collector value for the rifle alone. Given the total production run barely cracked 1,200 rifles worldwide, simply finding one in any condition puts you ahead of 99% of collectors who have spent decades looking. Look for the elevated leaf African Express rear sight, unique to this variant, and check the super grade floor plate marking. The serial number will fall within a documented production window that any Winchester specialist can verify. At number 2, the Rigby Mauser, chambered in .416 Rigby, and this is where the numbers on this list stop looking like collector prices and start looking like real estate. John Rigby and Company traces back to 1775 in Dublin, one of the oldest gun makers in the English-speaking world, and in 1911 they developed the .416 Rigby cartridge specifically for Cape Buffalo, elephant, and rhino. They built the rifle on a Mauser 98 action sourced directly from the original Oberndorf factory in Germany. Hand-fit, hand-checkered, and finished to London best gun-making standards. Every serious professional hunter in Africa wanted one. Walter Bell carried one. The great sellers hunters of East Africa carried them. In 1990, an original Rigby Mauser sold for around $5,000. By 2010, that had jumped to $18,000. Today, a correct matching numbers pre-war example with the original Oberndorf action is bringing $45,000 to $90,000, and documented rifles with verifiable professional hunter provenance have crossed $150,000 at auction. Part of what makes this rifle so difficult to fake is the sourcing itself. The Oberndorf action was only available for a limited window before the factory's production shifted with the coming of the Second World War, so any rifle claiming to be an original pre-war Rigby Mauser needs its action markings cross-checked against surviving factory records before serious money changes hands. Rigby's own archive in London still maintains detailed ledgers from this era, and a confirmed factory letter tracing a rifle back to its original customer transforms an already valuable gun into something closer to a museum artifact. Check the barrel for the John Rigby and Company roll mark alongside the Mauser action markings. The .416 Rigby chambering engraved right on the barrel and breech, and look for the original ivory bead front sight paired with a 3-leaf express rear sight, a signature of genuine London best production. If you made it this far, you already know more about collectible hunting rifles than almost anyone who walks into a gun shop this week. And that means you're ready for number 1, because nothing else on this list even comes close. Taking top spot on our list, the Holland and Holland Royal double rifle, the single most valuable hunting rifle ever produced, and the true gold standard of London gun making for over a century. Holland & Holland was founded in London in 1835. And by the late Victorian era, they had already become the most prestigious name in the business. In 1883, they entered the Field Magazine rifle trials and won every single rifle category. And from that moment forward, Holland and Holland became the maker of choice for African hunters, Indian Maharajas, European royalty, and American presidents. The Royal Double Rifle is the company's flagship, side-by-side barrels regulated to strike the same point of impact at 100 yards, a hand-fit treble grip action with a concealed third bite for extra strength, and hand-detachable side locks with gold-inlaid cocking indicators. Every single rifle is built bespoke to order, and each one takes between 1,500 and 2,500 hours of hand labor to complete. The most famous Royal Double Rifle ever built belonged to Theodore Roosevelt, chambered in 540-50, the rifle he called his Big Stick and carried across his 1909 African safari to take lion, elephant, Cape buffalo, and rhino. That rifle sold at auction in 1994 for $500,000 before the buyer's premium was even added, and today it sits on display at the Fraser History Museum in Louisville. In today's market, standard Holland and Holland Royal double rifles in 375 H&H or 458 are bringing $58,000 to $90,000 used. The deluxe variants with extensive engraving from master engravers are reaching $115,000 to $300,000. And the heaviest dangerous game chamberings, the 500 Nitro Express, the 577 Nitro Express, and the legendary 700 Nitro Express, push well beyond that. What makes the Royal line almost impossible to value with a simple chart is that every single rifle was built to one customer's exact specifications, meaning no two are truly identical. And the surviving factory ledgers describing stock dimensions, engraving pattern, and original case furniture become as important to the final price as the mechanical condition of the rifle itself. A Royal Double with a fully intact provenance trail from the original London order through every subsequent owner will always outsell an identical rifle missing that paper trail, sometimes by tens of thousands of dollars. Check the rib and receiver for the Holland and Holland banner mark, the Bruton Street, Mayfair address engraved on the barrel rib, and confirm the serial number on the action matches the number stamped on each barrel. If you ever encounter one, do not clean it, do not touch the finish, and contact Holland and Holland's records office in London for a factory letter before you do anything else. That letter alone can be worth tens of thousands of dollars on its own. That's the list. Every single one of these was built in an era when craftsmanship mattered more than output, when a rifle was fitted by hand instead of stamped on a line. And that era is never coming back. That's exactly why the supply on every rifle on this list only moves in one direction, down, while demand keeps climbing. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 10 is sitting in your safe right now? And did you have any idea what it was actually worth before this video? Drop the rifle in the comments, and if you've got a story about your father or grandfather carrying one of these into deer camp, I want to hear that too. If this list opened your eyes to something in your own collection, hit that subscribe button, because I break down exactly which guns are quietly making collectors rich every single week.